Let's make our beginning this morning in the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Boy, do I feel old after just celebrating my birthday. Well, that's an inside joke, I'm sorry. Celebrated my 70th this weekend, but it happened to be 6 months ago. But that's this front row here, all the saints that were members of my congregation in Kansas. So their records were not straight. So that's a whole other story. But I feel old simply because, can you imagine? I'm thinking when I was growing up, every one of these kids up here knew what a face page was, and I'm thinking, wow, things that I've seen in 70 years, right? And the changes that we've gone through. It's just amazing to me. Well, we're here today not to talk about changes and birth dates, but it's a celebration. It is a celebration weekend. This is our celebration of All Saints' Day. And everyone knows what a saint is, right? And we know that if here in the church we're doing an All Saints celebration, we know that beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's more than simply just being a member of a football team. Although there are saints, right? I mean, they carry that name. But it's not anything like what we're talking about this morning. Or our celebration is more than simply being canonized by a church, although we call them saints also. But if I ask you, what is a saint, what would you say? Interesting. You've seen people, and you've probably called people a saint for maybe something that they've done or how they've lived their life. Well, it's kind of close. A saint is someone who has been touched by God's love, been touched by God's love, and that love of God has moved them in such a way that their life has changed. Their life is changed, and it has enabled them to live a full and blessed life in the midst of whatever comes their way. So when you've looked at their lives, you see, wow, look how they dealt with this, how they dealt with that. They're a saint. That's what a saint is. And today we remember those saints. We remember those people who have lived those kind of lives here in this parish. And we recall them in our own lives, members of our family. We remember saints who have lived those kind of lives, trusting and turning their entire life over to Jesus. Turning over to His promises and lived in that promise and lived in that new life that became theirs in His love. But I don't want to dwell on that, though that's part of the celebration. But the celebration that I want to have with you this morning is just a celebration of life itself, and that you and I are also saints. We are people that have been touched by God's love and continue to be touched by God's love. We're people who have been challenged to live in that love even now. So that when people look at you and me, what do they see? The very face of God. Look at the saints. See how they love one another. And that's what I want us to celebrate this morning. It's what Jesus reminded His disciples of long ago in the gospel lesson that was read, the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, the upfront, the intro to the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus starts out and He says, blessed. Remember all the things, blessed are you, blessed. And He walks through all those. And I thought, as I looked at that gospel lesson, if Pastor Wheeler would say, okay, we're going to send you all out with a blessing today, I wonder, would he use that kind of blessing? Say, well, now go with this blessing. May you be poor. May you be filled with grief. May you be persecuted by everyone. You going to volunteer for that blessing? I think not. I think not. What's Jesus talking about to His disciples when He says, blessed are you? And that's what I'd like to have you think about, because you certainly are. Jesus doesn't want you filled with grief. He doesn't want you hungry. He doesn't want you to be persecuted. But what does He want? It's what He's given us in Himself. So would you bow your heads with me? Lord God, Heavenly Father, as we come to you this day, we're reminded of the blessings that you've poured out in our hearts and in our lives. We know what you want from us, but at times we overlook that as we look at what surrounds us in life. And we get carried away with all those things. We become sad. We become sorrowful. Father, we just ask that this day you might infuse us once again with the excitement that comes from knowing you and understanding exactly what it is that you've given us. We pray it all in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen. As I looked at the gospel lesson for today, I also looked at another translation, and this is the New English translation, which I thought was kind of interesting, that when you look at the Sermon on the Mount here in Matthew chapter 5, it begins this way. Instead of the word blessed, it says happy. Happy are those who grieve. Happy are those who are hungry. Happy are those who are persecuted. Happy. That's kind of interesting. When's the last time you felt happy in those kind of situations? Well, it reminded me of a story that I read quite some time ago. It was a book by Chuck Swindoll entitled Laugh Again, and he tells a story in there about a man who came to his office and he wanted to talk. He walked into his office and he simply began talking without much of anything, and he began to describe his life to him. And he said, Chuck, I was raised in an ultra-serious home. My family and I, we didn't talk much about our feelings. He said, we worked. That was the mantra in our family. We worked. The entire family was raised under that old notion and the old idea that you could get whatever you want in life. You just had to, what? Work hard, right? That's all, and that's what we understood. You work hard, you work long. You come early to the job, you stay late. You work hard, you work long. And then he kind of stopped, and then he made his point. He said to Chuck, he said, but here I am. I'm 60 plus years old. I've achieved about everything that I ever dreamed of doing and received the rewards that come from hard work. The problem is, here I am now, and I don't know how to have fun. I don't know how to enjoy the things that came my way, that hard work brought to me. I don't know how to enjoy them. I can't remember the last time that I laughed. I can't remember the last time, I had one of those gut-rippling kind of the thoughts. I just can't. And without giving Chuck an opportunity to respond, he just turned and he started to walk out of the office, and he said, thank you. He said, I got it. I know what the answer is. Now I know that I simply have to work harder at being happy. Right? Do you know anybody like that? Working hard to be happy. Working hard to be satisfied. And that becomes the goal in life. And Jesus comes along, and in the gospel lesson for today, that's what he's talking about. He says, time out. There is a way to happiness. There is a way to a blessed, abundant, satisfying life. He says, I know that's what people look for. And he tells his disciples how they receive it. And he said, by the way, it's not achieved by long work hours. It's not achieved by working harder and harder and harder. In that case, if happiness came that way, what would you know beyond a shadow of a doubt? Every workaholic that you'd come across would be the happiest person in this world. Right? If hard work got you that satisfaction. Problem, doesn't work that way. Human achievements result in earthly rewards. And they fire a fuel for more achieving, right? And greater rewards. Now somebody's probably saying here, okay, Pastor, what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with stuff, right? Nothing wrong with that, but simply think of it this way. The stuff of life rarely I would suggest never brings that deep down satisfaction and inner peace, that contentment and lasting joy in my life. You know what I'm talking about, right? Everyone here has their new iPhone 6, right? And 6 Plus, right? Now, that's exciting. How long is that going to last? Well, what happens when 7 and 8 come out? You see what I'm saying? You know? Since I've been born, I can remember, well, I've eaten 3 meals a day, and sometimes more than that, you know? Why am I never satisfied? How is it that I have to continue to take it in? Why did God create us that way? Why can't I just eat once and be done with it? Why 3 times a day, not just once? You see what I'm saying? Well, that new car brings enjoyment, doesn't it? And satisfaction. Everyone here loves that new smell of a car, right? A new car. Wow. But the dumb thing wears off, doesn't it? After a while, it smells like diapers and dogs and everything else, doesn't it? And then you can't wait till the next. And if somebody got a new car, excuse me, I'm just using that for an illustration, you know. So I'm not picking on you. But you understand, it doesn't last. The stuff of life, it never brings that lasting kind of satisfaction. There's nothing wrong with it. Hear what I'm saying. Right? But it's an earthly system. Right? It's an earthly system exalting and rewarding earthly people with earthly rewards that are temporary in nature. That's all. That's all it is. It's easy to forget that the stuff that we accumulate doesn't give that long satisfaction, that deep kind of peace inside. But I guess as I think about it, that's kind of the nation we live in, isn't it? That's the way we're built around that stuff. The work to accumulate, that's what keeps us going. Where does it come from? What's Jesus telling his disciples in the message? What about that happiness? What about that blessedness? There's a passage in Psalm 34. Psalm 34, it's verses 8 and 9. And you might want to just remember that and take a look at it, because I thought it was kind of interesting when I found that. Psalm 34, 8 and 9. It starts out, of all things, it says, the saints. Oh, this was written. I wonder if David knew we were going to use this on All Saints Day. The saints, it says, have tasted and seen that the Lord is good. The saints, those people, saints are people who know the Lord. They've seen what he can do. They've looked at his promises, and every promise that he's made, he's completely fulfilled. He's never gone back on them. They've seen the Lord. They know he's good. And then it goes on, and it says, and those who take refuge in him. And not only do they see him and know what he can do, they act on it. They say, boy, I'm in there. I'm all in my entire life. It's his. Whatever he says, they trust him wholly and completely. And then the verses conclude, and it says, those people who've seen him know he's good, who take refuge in him, they are, you know what the word is? Happy. Blessed. Fulfilled. Satisfied. God knows. He created us. He knows that that's what we lack in life, that deep down kind of stuff. He knows people long for satisfaction and contentment. And Jesus comes along and he starts his message and he says, I'm here, folks. I'm here to give it. If that's what you're looking for in life, I've got it for you. Try it this way. The only way, I'm going to say, the only way for you to be happy, the only way for you to be happy is to make God happy, right? Now don't press it. Just go with me here. The only way for you to be happy is to make God happy. Now how in the world do you make God happy? You can't email any stuff to him. You can't FedEx him stuff, can you? The only way to make God happy is when you and I allow him to be in that position of God and the Lord of our life, and we assume the position in which he created us to be, that makes him happy. Everything is right with the world. He is in the position of Lord, and we are not. And I think you can begin to understand it a little way. How does that thing go, about, well, if the spouse or your child isn't happy? I don't want to go there, but ain't nobody happy, right? Isn't that how it goes? Now think about that. If we are not completely under the lordship of God, if he is not completely and totally Lord of our life, in the things that I do, in the things that why in the world would we expect him to go out and make us independently happy? It ain't going to happen. Because happiness doesn't come that way. But you and I have been fed this stuff, right? It's a right we have. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What? Did you know the framers of the Constitution said the pursuit of happiness has nothing to do with the pursuit of stuff. It has to do with freedom of religion, to be in that right relationship with God, because they knew that to know God and to walk in his way brought happiness, brought contentment, brought satisfaction. You don't have it, then what happens? You look around, and people spend their entire life trying to pursue something that they'll never attain in and of themselves, because they look at it and fulfill that void from the stuff around us. Happiness, blessedness. Look at the words a little closer. Blessed, the Greek word that's used here is makarios. The Greeks always called the island of Cyprus Makaria, translated the happy island. The happy island. And the reason that they called it Makarios, the happy island, was because they believed, as they look at that island, it was so lovely, it was so rich, it was so fertile, that once you arrived there, you would never want to be any other place in the world. It would be that perfect and happy place. Makaria. That's the word that's translated blessed here that Jesus uses. That island had the climate, it had the fruit, it had the flower, had the trees, had the minerals, had everything that one could ever hope for to make and give a satisfied life. Makarios, that word describes a joy that's independent of all the chances and changes of life. Not to be subject to anything out there. Makarios, that's what it means to be blessed, to be happy. Not subject to the changes and chances of life. Admittedly, probably that word happy is the best translation for that word. But when you look at happiness, there is a root that comes out of that word, hap, that can be translated chance. Chance. In today's world, we tend to see happiness, like I said, in the chances and changes of life. Something that may give happiness or destroy happiness. And we look at it as we look at the things around us, the chances, the changes that come our way. Man, we had that. Let's see, what's the lottery up to? A couple $100 million maybe? I don't know. But you go out and buy that ticket when it gets real high, right? Because what does that chance hold out? Everything that I could ever hope for or want in life. I might as well buy that puppy now. Somebody's got to win it, right? That chance. Or let's bring it home. What happened yesterday when Abdullah went down? Man, there was a collective sigh. All the wind got sucked out of the state of Nebraska, right? What are we going to do? There went our chances for fame and glory and satisfaction. Finally, a winner on our. You see what I'm saying? We find the chances and the changes of life. The saints' happiness and blessedness is completely untouchable. Untouchable. It's unassailable. Jesus said it loud and clear. He says, no one can take the joy from you, the joy that I give you. The only way it leaves you is if you give it up. You have to give it up. He says, it's yours. I give it to you. In the midst of pain and sorrow and loss, it comes. There's joy. I mean, there's not a guffaw when you stand by a casket of a loved one, right? There are tears, sure, but what is it that you and I have that many don't have, might never have? That quiet confidence, that satisfaction, that is not the end, that person who is in that casket, who ultimately gets put in the ground, will one day live again, and I'll stand with that loved one in eternity. That's being blessed with that understanding and with that hope. The world, yeah, it can win its joys, it can lose its joy. A change in fortune, the collapse of health, failure of a plan, or a disappointment of an ambition, a change in the weather can mess up our lives. It can all take away the fickle joy that the world gives. The disciple, however, and that's what Jesus is striving at as he introduces those Beatitudes. The saint's joy, he wants us to know, is untouchable because it comes from walking in the company of Jesus. The Jesus who came, suffered, died, paid the penalty, was buried, and he came to life. He overcame everything that would ever hold us down. He overcame anything that would create grief or doubt in our life. And he says, you're mine. You're my child. You have what I have won for you. That's the excitement of today. That's what we're celebrating on All Saints. What we have now. We have it now and ultimately in the life to come. Think of the blessings. As I looked at the Beatitudes, I think, it's a blessing, isn't it? It's a blessing to not get caught up in the few short years that God gives us to live on this planet, to not get so caught up in this life that we lose eternal life. That's a blessing from God that he watches over, protects. And that word keeps coming at us because we know how many times in the history of God's people they walk with him and they turn around and walk in another direction. And he has to come back and get them again. And here to know that as we walk through life, yeah, we mess up, but he watches, he guides, and eternal life is ultimately ours. What a gift. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to know that you and I have been released from the rat race of competition. Knowing that God loves us just the way we are. He didn't come along and say, hey, okay, now I want you to shape up. Then I'm going to love you. Right? No, he didn't say that. He said, yeah, okay, I see it. I see it. I know who you are. You're mine. Right? What beautiful thing. Well, what did you do today to please God? Nothing. What did you do today? To make God not love you? Nothing. Right? That's what he says. We're released. What a blessing to know that. A blessing to trust that God cares for us and he provides for us, doesn't he? And he says, all the stuff that I give you because I love you. And it's up to you to decide. How much can you live on? Can you live on 80%, 90%, 95%? Or do you need it all for yourself? And he says, it's all mine and I've given it to you, right? So that you have the opportunity to be who you are in this world. You can be my hands, you can be my feet, you can go out, and when people see you, they'll see me walking around in this world because you use what I have blessed you with to touch hearts and lives and bring peace and joy and satisfaction that you already possess to other people. What a blessing that is. What a blessing to know that no matter what we've done, right? No matter what we've done, you don't have to carry that garbage around with you. It's clean. It's clean. The closet's bare. There's nothing back there. Oh, yeah, if you want to go back and look, you can dig it up again. But God says, I've taken care of it. Quit dragging it with you. You're free. What a blessing that is. There are a lot of people who don't know that, who run around like Linus kicking the dust of life. Right? oh, woe is me. That's not us. That's not us. We've been freed from that. We have a blessing of knowing that God's watching over and looking after us, no matter what happens. Psalm 103, verse 19 says it beautiful. It says his kingdom rules over all things. Wow. When it looks like the end, so who's in charge? And I admit, you can ask my wife, I can get pretty much tied into conspiracy theory at times, and she asks me, do one of those things, just to wake me up. Because that happens, doesn't it? And you look, and I look and I say, well, this is coming out of Washington, this is coming out of here, what is it? And sometimes I come very close, just throwing up my hands and saying, holy God. And I got to remind that God says, hey, time out. I'm in charge, and I'm working in all things for your good, for the good of those that are called according to your purpose. Let it up to me. I'll be God. You just trust me. What a blessing. What a blessing to know that God's made peace with us through his Son, Jesus. You and I can be peacemakers with other people. What a blessing. What a blessing to know that we can walk through life and not be weighed down with the knowledge that somewhere along the way we've compromised our principles. That's a blessing. A lot of people walk through life, and at every step, that's how they live. They compromise their principles. God's people have that blessing because they know what they are to live for. They know their purpose for being here. They know the mission that they have. There's no question. That's what you and I have been given in Jesus. Jesus tells us today, Mark chapter 10, I tell you, he says, I tell you, he's telling each of us here today, no one has ever left home or brother or sisters or mother or father or field for my sake or the sake of the gospel who will not receive my blessing 100-fold in this age and in the age to come. As a celebration. It's an all saints celebration. Are we blessed? You bet your life. May God bless you as you walk and you celebrate the new life that's ours in Jesus. Happy All Saints Day. Amen. May the peace of God, which surpasses all human understanding, keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.